The Portfolio Composer, episode 194.
You're listening to the Portfolio Composer podcast with your host and coach, Garrett Hope, where he teaches you what it takes to master the business end of writing music through mindset, marketing, and business skills. Make sure to sign up for the newsletter at theportfoliocomposer.com for exclusive offers, business insights, and information not shared on the podcast. And now, for this episode of the Portfolio Composer.
I think it's good to initially think small, and small doesn't mean, small in terms of ambition or gestures you can do, because you can do so much with one person and a bit of electronics and visuals that you can make epic works, So I guess that would be my advice.
This episode is brought to you by Dorico, the music notation software from Steinberg. Just released, Dorico Pro 2 is a major new version, including features for musicians working in film and TV music and in jazz, rock, and pop. Steinberg have also released Dorico Elements, a new entry-level application that packs all of the essential power of Dorico Pro into a simple, streamlined package that is ideal for those getting started. Find out more later in the show. Hey everyone, it's Garrett. Before I introduce you to today's guest, I'm very excited to tell you about the very first The Portfolio Composer live event. On Saturday, November 10th, I will be interviewing Stacey Garrett, who's been featured on the podcast before, for a live show. Basically, it's going to be turned into episode 200. But along with that, we are going to hear some of her absolutely incredible music, including premiere of a piece. And some people have told me they'd be interested in participating in a music business related workshop before that event. And so I'm trying to get that in place as well. If you want more details and if you want to know how to get tickets and how you can participate in this live event, then you need to be on the Portfolio Composer mailing list. Go to theportfoliocomposer.com and you will see links on how to join the mailing list. Don't miss out. This is going to be pretty incredible, and seating actually is limited. Today's guest is the absolutely incredible Michel van der Aa. He was recommended to me as someone I should speak with. He's Netherlands born and is the winner of the 2015 Johannes Vermeer Award and the 2013 Grawemeyer Award. He is one of today's most sought-after composers and stage directors. I think you'll get a lot out of this. All right, enjoy the interview. Michel, your bio is so incredibly impressive, and after listening to your works online, I'm absolutely blown away. But you are the first Grawemeyer winning composer I've had on the podcast. So can we just start there?
Sure, yeah.
You've had tremendous success and many awards, but the Grawemeyer is one of the major awards for composition. What was that experience like, getting the phone call saying you've been chosen?
I was slightly, not more than slightly overwhelmed. I got this very nice gentleman on my voicemail asking him to call back someone from the University of Louisville, and I was puzzled, but I called him back, and then he told me the great news, and it is such a great honor to be engraved in that list of amazing composers, very esteemed colleagues, and that I look up to so much. And it was a wonderful experience, also being there and sort of meeting the young composers of the university and working with them. And I was very honored, and I think it also helped putting my name a little bit on the map in the US.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's sort of. I mean, I had some smaller performances of my chamber work, but the Grawemeyer Award sort of initiated the performance of this cello concerto up close in LA with LA Phil, and in New York at the White Light Festival. So I think it brought sort of some major concert performances to the US, and so in that sense, it was a door opener for me.
I want to know, as a person who has won some of the most prestigious awards in composition, would you encourage young composers to continue reaching out for this? I mean, is it a real career builder is really what I'm getting at?
I mean, it helps, especially in the beginning. It really helps sort of getting your name out there. And there are so many talented composers around. And of course, the internet now helps a lot in getting your music, sort of making your music available, so people can go to your website and listen. But still, there are so many composers, so many young composers. I guess it could be difficult for presenters and programmers to, to find the new interesting voice. And I think winning an award like that sort of helps sort of put your name in the spotlight for a brief moment, and maybe helps some of the presenters notice.
Yeah, it does get you quite a bit of press and PR, and programmers of major ensembles pay attention to those things.
Yeah.
When you started your composition career, at least this is what I understand from doing some research, you actually entered composition after going through and becoming a recording engineer and a sound designer.
Yeah.
How do you think learning the studio as a tool has influenced your composition life?
Well, I have to say, I during my study to be a sound designer and a sound engineer, I was already composing, but I didn't take myself too seriously. But I think I learned. What I really gained is I trained my ears with it. We were sort of comparing microphones, and learning about acoustics and recording a lot of music. And my specialty was new music, and I heard a lot of new music and contemporary music, and sort of got quite fond of it. And also, we were taught to sort of lead these recordings as a producer. So we read a lot, we saw a lot of scores, and this really sort of I think trained my ears and trained my heart for new music. And so after a few years, I had my own company together with a friend, and we recorded a lot of music for major labels. And I somehow wasn't sort of convinced that this is the way I would like to spend my days. And I decided to go for it and apply for composition in the conservatory in The Hague. And to my great surprise, they accepted me, and so I started studying there.
One of the things that all the commentary about you and the news articles point out is your innovative use of sound design, collaboration, sampling, electronics, seamlessly interwoven with live performance. And I'm wondering if the training you had as a sound designer really gave you the tools that make that possible.
Yeah, I think it. I became quite virtuosic with computers and sound editing because of my engineering study, and I think that became quite helpful when I started making my own electronic tracks for my works. And so I guess I think the combination of sort of dealing with editing programs on the computer and sort of training my ears was great sort of breeding soil for becoming a composer.
Yeah, you had formed a company with your business partner, and you were doing recording. What did you do to learn how to operate a business? You had training in sound production, sound design, and engineering, but we usually don't get how to run a business training along with that. So how did you shortcut that process, and what'd you do?
With a lot of mistakes, we learned. I still find it incredibly difficult to sort of name a prize for what I do, and that was already back then, But fortunately, we had some great teachers at the conservatory that actually did teach us a little bit about the business side of things. It had some very practical courses, so we knew the sort of basics.
Mm-hmm.
But then, you have to sort of tailor them to your own specialty and to your own needs. And I think we made a kind of sort of basic mistake of investing a lot in equipment in the beginning, and didn't have enough recordings to pay them off. So I guess in retrospect, we could have. It would have been better if we rented stuff, and because the specialty that we were hired in for was, were our ears and our experience and the way we could, knew how to do recording. So it wasn't about the gear. So these things we kind of learned in the first years, and Yeah, I think I did it for about 7, 8 years, and in the end, we had a lot of work, and it wasn't because of the lack of success that I decided to stop. It was more like I said, it wasn't in the end where my heart was at.
Right. Well, being a studio engineer is not a glamorous life. You're in a dark, isolated room with no windows for most of the day.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty tedious.
Well, I mean, what I liked about it is the collaboration with all these wonderful musicians and conductors and composers, and the whole social aspect of it I found very interesting, and also, having the responsibility to produce the works, to be a tone meister, to be there with the score and sort of decide upon the edit of the music, and so there was a very interesting sort of artistic and musical side and creative side to it as well, and that combination of technology and creativity is what initially sort of drew me to it.
Oh, interesting. After studying at The Hague and working a lot on your composition skill, you came to New York City and started learning about films.
Yeah.
Tell me more about that.
Well, my work, my compositions got more and more visual, and I started making more and more visual notes in my scores. Not only about the staging or the lighting situation, but also about movements of the musicians. To freeze their movement or to mime with the soundtrack. So very gradually, I started sort of integrating the visual layer to my music, and I then decided to take a year off and study film in New York and sort of dive into that layer of my work and learn how to film and learn how to direct and learn about lighting and cameras, and that was a super exciting year. And in the end, I found that it was actually quite close to composing, editing, and film. You're doing the same things. You're working with time. You're working with repetition. You're working with all these, in a way, the same aesthetics and the same tools as the composer. And after that, I started using the film layer in some of my works. The first work I did after the Academy was my Chamber Opera 1 for Barbara Hannigan.
What are some of the other lessons that you've learned while working in film that you think you've been able to take into strictly the manipulation of sound side? And I know that you think holistically, like these are integrated, but I'm wondering if there's lessons that other people could take away from this.
The film part lets me do things that I can't do with my music, that I can't do with sound. And I think that's a very basic and important starting point for me, that I use film not because I want to add a sort of layer of entertainment to my work, but it's really a necessity, and it really needs to be there in the core of the idea of the piece. It needs to be, I need to do something with the film that I can't possibly do with the music. And in that sense, they, also when I use staging in an opera or a music theater piece, these three layers, in a way, I constantly juggle and sort of put on the foreground and background. It's a continuous play of changing perspectives in that sense, and being able to do that myself as a composer. Already in the creation process, I can decide for a certain scene in an opera, for example, which of these layers is most important and which is foreground and background. And already in the sort of DNA of the piece, I can determine this balance.
It seems to me like rather than just having the traditional tool set that all composers have, timbre, pitch, rhythm, harmony, you also now have other elements. You have color, space, dimension, focus, right?
Yeah.
And these are all operating at the same time for you as you create.
Yeah. And these are all, I really see, when I write an opera, the film part is really a composed part. The editing of the film is composed almost as a musical element. So you can't really disconnect those two. You need to see both worlds. You need to hear and see these two layers to get the full picture.
In general, does one come before the other for you?
No, they always come simultaneously. So when I write, I work on 3 layers when I write a music theater piece. And I make notes in my score, in my drafts. I make film script notes. I make staging drawings. I mean, not for each and every second in the piece, but definitely the larger lines or the key scenes are made like that. And yeah, like I said, this enables me to really balance these 3 layers to the text and to the libretto and to determine really what the piece needs at that point, and not that's a completely different situation than writing a score for an opera and handing it over to a filmmaker and asking him or her, here's my music, please add film to it. It's a much. The risk of doing that is that it's much more of an autonomous work, and you need to there needs to be air and room for these other elements to extend the music and to deepen the music and to turn around the music.
Right. What excites you most about all of this? What's lighting your fire?
Well, I mean, I definitely wouldn't want to make opera pieces, because then I probably die very young. But because of the stress levels, because it's quite an ordeal to have to wear these 3 hats. And it's amazing because I love collaboration, and there's nothing I love more than being in a darkened theater hall and working with other people to make this. These weird music theater works that really come to life there, and that the audience will see later. It's such a luxury to be able to do that I'm allowed to do that. And but then again, after an opera, I often feel the urge to write sort of pure concert music again. And so after Sunken Garden, I wrote Hysteresis and a clarinet concerto, and so I always try to sort of balance these things. Some ideas I have I can really do. I really need sort of operatic setting for, and some ideas I can do with solo violin. So it really depends on the idea, I love to be able to accommodate sort of a rather kaleidoscopic scala of ideas that way.
Yeah, makes sense to me. And as I listen to your music and I watch the videos, right, because you can't, the way you've written it, it's not just about listening, it's also the visual.
Yeah, for some pieces, definitely. I mean, a piece like Up Close, the cello piece that you need to see the film part as well. But for my violin concerto, it's a pure concerto piece. There's no electronics. It's just the amazing Janine Jansen playing on stage, and that's sort of the core of the piece. So it really depends on the piece.
This episode is sponsored by Dorico, the future of scoring. And we want to feature real Dorico users so you can know that real composers out in the world today are using Dorico to make their careers happen.
My name is Reginald Unterzehr. I am a composer, conductor, voice teacher, musician of a variety of sorts. It does absolutely everything I need. Plus, every time a new feature is released, it does it with depth and clarity that I have never seen in any programs to date. Right now, I think my favorite, I'm just finally figuring out the idea of flows. I'm deep into a multi-movement choral orchestral soloist project. And so there are certain aspects of that I had not explored at all and didn't really need. And now that I see how they work, it's going to be a tremendous help when I get into the rehearsal and distribution of scores phase and revisions phase. It just makes the way that flows are set up makes it a single document that works for all the different movements of it, and I'm loving that. The number one benefit is the fact that I believe this program has legs, that there's going to be updates that come out regularly. The team that runs it is a reliable, solid team. The people who own it are responsible and have a commitment to the musical community. This was my big problem with the platform that I left. It was like, this platform has been abandoned and I do not want to spend another cent on it. I definitely recommend Dorico. My number one thing is that it actually presents a path forward as my work continues. I am 62 years old. Learning a new program is daunting. I really like the way that the scores look. They just seem very natural. The spacings work so much better. The way that choral scores work now, the way that it works with lyrics, the way that it works with layouts. I went back to I was with a choir doing a piece that I had put together in another program 8-10 years ago. And they were asking me all kinds of questions about, what is this note and what is that? Is that a tie? Is that a slur? Is that a this thing? I was looking back at it and I was going, oh, yeah, they really fixed that problem, didn't they? Because I don't get those questions with Dorico. People look at the notes and they play the notes or sing the notes and it makes sense. They don't have to figure out what the program meant by it. I run into into problems in rehearsals oftentimes when tracking the eye across the page confuses them rhythmically. And I have not had that problem at all with Dorico. Again, it seems to be it gets out of the way of the interface between composers' intentions and musicians' reading. Rather than introducing barriers, it removes barriers, and I like that a lot.
The kind folks at Dorico have set up a special web page so you can go and download a free 30-day trial copy of Dorico. So go and do that. Have been using the program, and I'm absolutely in love with it. Go to dorico.com/TPC. So how do you bridge the gap from the listener to the one who's going to come and buy a concert ticket? And what are you doing to get people into the hall then?
Well, often this is, I'm fortunate that in some places people are interested to sort of hear a new work of me and sort of come because of that. And if I performed in a country that nobody knows me, then it's up to the venue and to the presenter to get the audience in. And often my music is then programmed in a series that people trust the curator of and come to see the works because of that. So I think it's my role, your role as a composer also at one point stops, and it's up to the presenter to do the marketing and to get the audience in.
I think there's a lot of composers who want to do what you're doing. And so do you have any tips or best practices so composers can help the concert promoter or help the show producer to build that buzz?
It really has to be the work that speaks for itself, of course, in a perfect world. First and foremost, you have to write something that you absolutely believe in and that is absolutely true to yourself and almost like a necessity to make for yourself. And this may sound like an open door, but I think it's very important for a composer to find his or her own voice and to really believe in that, even if nobody initially seems to care for it. I've had so many no's and doors slammed in my face when I presented, ideas for new pieces. And you have to sort of be a pit bull and bite in and don't let go, because people will very easily tell you no if you're sort of slightly off the beaten path, and especially when you use technology in your work or multimedia, or you suggest to a presenter something that is more than just an orchestra sitting on a stage. There's a Pavlov response with quite a few presenters that they immediately see more work and more money and hiring in PA systems and video beamers, and they suddenly lose interest. But I think it's up to us makers to still make that happen. And once that works, there are a lot of presenters who are interested in more than just concert pieces, in pieces that have visual elements and that are using electronics and that are sort of connected to the visual DNA of our time. And I think it's the problem is often when they see the technical writer or when they see the budget, that then suddenly they realize, well, it does cost a little bit more to do this, but this is what needs to be done. I think the budget for a presenter for these kind of projects needs to be a bit higher. It was a long rant going nowhere. I'm sorry about that, but
no, I got a lot out of it actually, because the point you made is that composers and creators have a responsibility to actually show. Well, I'm going to use my own terminology here, but to show the presenter the value in taking on this project.
Yeah.
It's more, as you said, it's more than just getting people on the stage and lighting designers and stage sets, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think, you know, there's a tendency now with orchestras here in Europe, but also in the US, I think, to some, you know, to beam a movie behind the orchestra and sort of play along with the movie, or to ask someone to visualize an existing orchestra piece from the classics. I mean, this for me is not necessarily the future of how we need to integrate visuals and music. I think it has to be born at the same time, the music and the visuals, and it has to extend each other, deepen each other. There's stuff you can do with film and staging and lighting that you can't do with sound, and vice versa. And I see that, especially in the younger generations, that there are now a lot of makers who don't only think in sound anymore, and really are using all these elements to define their language. And this is very exciting to me. So I hope, maybe I can help a little bit by having my works performed in places that I hope I help pave the way a little bit for these young makers, in showing that, sometimes it's possible to do that and still have an audience in the hall, and still sort of make sense of it economically.
I don't know about what it's like in Europe, because I don't have any personal experience from that. But I know here in the United States, it's very challenging to have access to large venues and orchestras. They're few, they're expensive. So being a composer who can put on these kinds of multimedia events are few. What excites me, though, is this trend and interest, at least in the United States, for smaller venues, house concerts, parlor and salon type events, which I think could also take advantage of all of these elements at the same time.
Absolutely, yeah. You can make a super small, you can make a one-person opera, using these elements and perform it in a very small space, and ask your friends to help out and do lighting. And this is how I made my first opera, the one I did for Barbara Hannigan. I mean, we all, we had a sponsor deal with the local film company, and I think we made the whole project for about €1,000,
Wow.
The film part. And it depended a lot on the excitement of friends to help out on it. And the piece toured to 13 countries, and we, it sort of opened doors for a bigger opera, Afterlife, that I then could make at the Dutch National Opera. So I think it's good to initially think small, and small doesn't mean small in terms of ambition or gestures you can do, because you can do so much with one person and a bit of electronics and visuals. You can make epic works, So I guess that would be my advice. I think it's better to have a longer time in the space with less people and experiment and be able to tweak what you're doing than to have one day in a huge venue with, an orchestra and it has to go in 2 hours. I mean, you don't learn from that. You only make mistakes, and there's no way to do it again. So, it's much more clever to start small and sort of fall in all the traps that we all fall into, and deal with sculpting your piece in time in front of and see how an audience reacts on it, and start with smaller pieces. Chamber operas under an hour, 20 minutes, a monologue. I mean, there's so many exciting things you can do.
Yeah. And to kind of summarize, is epic works don't have to be expensive.
No. This is, of course, a costly process if you're operating at Lincoln Center Festival or at the LA Phil. That's not possible because there are time restrictions and financial restrictions. But it's very much possible if you work with friends and musician friends and find a local squatting place that you can use. And that's how I started, and that's how a lot of my colleagues started. And you can do amazing things with very little means, and it's more important to learn to get more experience about how to deal with time and put things in front of an audience and phrasing, and rather than do a 10-minute piece for an orchestra, which happens once and never again. And so it's yeah, I mean, divide your energy wisely, I'd say.
One of the things that you had brought up was that it cost you about €1,000 to produce the film for one.
Yeah.
Obviously, at least to me, it's obvious you're still thinking about the budget and you're still approaching it from a quasi-business perspective. Probably a lot of the skills that you learned running your own studio. Do you have any other ways of thinking or how you've applied business into the work you do so that you can get it produced?
I mean, it keeps being difficult. I mean, even though I had a few works now that were rather large scale and have been performed on places, still when I think up a next project, it's always difficult to get the money together, because even in Europe times have changed a lot. I mean, it's not, you can't do a €1 million budget opera anymore with one partner. That's just not possible, and it used to be possible. So you have to find co-commissioners, and that's, I think, when I'm doing an opera, that's part of my life as a composer, to pitch the opera to potential presenters, to jump in an airplane, to go abroad and to pitch it to an opera house again, and to in a way it helps. You get that. I'm not able to get that appointment because of the stuff I've done before, but it doesn't necessarily mean they immediately say yes.
Right.
So it keeps on being. It's like making a movie. Every director has to find the money again and it's often you have to find multiple partners to do it, and it's just a whole dance and play and chess game, and it's something I'm always involved in, because in the end, they want to hear it from the horse's mouth anyway, so you can have a producer,
right,
prepares it, but in the end, I will have to be the one to convince people. And so I got a little bit better in that, and into sort of presenting a piece and pitching a piece. And I think if a presenter meets the composer and he or she is super excited about it and can sort of transfer that excitement and showcase that excitement, I think that's already so much help and to get a project done.
I'm very interested in learning more about your pitching process. Can I ask some questions about that?
Sure.
How do you craft a pitch? Does the pitch start with an introductory email saying, I would like to open the door to this conversation?
It depends a little bit. I mean, often I talk to people that I've met before, or that I worked with before, or that I know or got to know. So it's sometimes an email by my publisher, Bougie & Hawkes, or by my agent, Intermusica, or sometimes I just write myself because I know I'll probably get a faster answer on a personal email.
Mm-hmm.
And then, direction on that first email that sort of determines whether we put more energy in it. Sometimes they say, no, I'm sorry, we're already fully booked the next few seasons, or this is really not an opera subject that I'm interested in, or, so you already sort of sense in that first reaction the likelihood of a continuous step being successful. So it's you sort of go from phase to phase in that respect. First approach and the meeting, and then there's a lot of waiting and massaging and reminders and follow-ups, and in the end, I mean, I've pitched operas to places where we were very far ahead in the talks, and we were already talking money and scheduling, and still it can sort of all fall apart, So it's you have to be prepared for that.
What are some of the best practices that you've learned to crafting a successful pitch?
Well, be yourself. I mean, it's a bit of an open door, but if you really believe in your own project, then you should, because it's something you absolutely will. I mean, you want to make, you need to make. It should be a sort of life, changing necessity for you to make that piece. And if you really believe in it that much, I think this will translate into a pitch. And if you're excited about the project, then it's easier to ignite excitement on the other part of the table, on the other side of the table. And so that's why I think it's always good to go. The makers should go themselves and not leave it to producers to do it.
I like it.
Yeah, be yourself, really. I mean, and be realistic. And I think it's good to already sort of put yourself in their seat and think about where the risks are in the project, financially or artistically or logistically, so that you already have an answer to their questions, because they immediately will look for a potential risk.
Yeah, they're putting money on the line, and they want to get that money back.
Exactly. So they'll want to know your schedule. They want to know what happens if your collaborator that you mentioned falls out with you. They want to know, if you use technology, what the risks are about the technology working, and how much extra time you need on stage with that. And so all these things you need to think about and have an answer to. And if you don't have an answer, you tell them, sorry, I don't know that at this point. I'll look it up and get back to you on that. Just be super honest about it.
This is really fascinating to me, Michel. When I listen to investment podcasts or I read stuff about how, venture capital works, the people who are funding startups in technology, this is the same thing. You're showing these people who have the money what the ROI is. So you're helping alleviate the risk so that they can get their money back. And you're trying to anticipate and have an answer for every single question they can have. You do the best you can.
You do the best you can. And you think about, I think it's important to put yourself in their seat and think, why should we, invest in this young maker? And there's so much competition in a way. I mean, there's so many exciting new young composers, older composers. I mean, and there's so little possibilities. So in a way, you're, you have to sort of win them. It's like pitching a film, really. You have to, do the elevator pitch. You have to sort of reel them in the first few minutes in terms of the content. And that, and that's something you can prepare yourself, that talk.
How do you stand out, though? You just said there are lots of composers who are all asking for money. How do you show the value in your project? And it's a hard question.
Yeah, I think the value is shown. I mean, because they see in you that you're super excited about it, and the way you talk about it, and
okay.
I'm now in the process of pitching a new opera actually this week to a few people, and we've worked very hard on the synopsis and on the sort of project description and you send that ahead so that they already know a little bit about it, and then in a way, that sort of gets you the meeting. So if you get the meeting, they're already interested in the subject and in you as a maker. And then it's just at that point, I think that you should sort of give them peace of mind that you can do it and that you're excited to do it and that you really believe in the project and that you have answers to these difficult questions.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's not only the idea, it's of course also the name of the composer, what you've done before. I mean, I won't lie about it. I mean, you have,
sure.
In a way, at one point you become, they're going to sort of judge you also not only about the current idea, but also about what you've done before and also have these pieces traveled.
Yeah. Well, success breeds success, right?
Yes and no. It's also a risk.
Okay.
If you do a new piece, everybody's excited about it, you can also fall down pretty hard, or to a certain extent, or to certain people, publicly. In terms of press or in terms of presenters. So you're always as good as your latest pieces. I think the idea has to be good. You have to really believe in it, and then if you're starting, if you're a starting composer, then start small.
Right.
Don't aim immediately for the mat, unless they have a workshop program and you can pitch out there. I believe they have some sort of workshop program as well. I mean, that's a great way to get in, of course.
Yeah. From the outside, looking at you and looking at what you're doing and all the awards you've won, it looks like it's easy. But I kind of want to dispel that notion. You're also describing to me how you work really hard to get the money. And you probably get a bunch of no's. Not everything is a yes. So I'm curious on what the ratio is. Like, in baseball, if a person gets on base, that means they have a batting average. And a successful baseball player has a 30% batting average. 40% means they're a superstar.
Yeah.
Is that similar to you? For every 10 asks, if you can get 3 to 4 yeses, that's good?
Yeah, that sounds like an average. That's relatable. I mean, it depends a bit on the project and where I am in my career, but I think, that sounds about right. But often, I mean, these no's don't have to mean that they don't believe in you, or it can be timing, and it can be the subject. So it can be there can be so many reasons for a no, or that they already sort of fully booked their season, or they're moving to another opera house and they can't tell you yet. There's all these things, all these reasons why things might bounce back to you.
Yeah.
But I guess the percentage is different with Tom Ades or with Sariaho. So it's
sure.
That's a different league in terms of finding successful opera partners.
Well, they're pretty bankable at this point too.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, it's also a matter of numbers. Will we sell the tickets for 6 or 7 shows or even more? And if you're staying, if you're playing in the Met, that's a lot of seats to fill. And if you're playing in a chamber music hall, then for 300-400 people, that's a different story. So there's a different level of risk, and therefore it's a better venue to start.
Right. Well, this has been a fascinating conversation for me, Michel. Thank you so much.
Yeah, happy to.
This episode is brought to you by Dorico, the music notation software from Steinberg. The brand new Dorico Pro 2 introduces best-in-class support for composing to picture. Using the same powerful new video engine found in Cubase and Nuendo, attach a video to your project. Play it back via the dedicated video window and see thumbnails in play mode. Add markers at crucial points in the action and display them in the score. Use the new tempo automation controls in play mode to line markers up with beats, or find a tempo for the whole cue. New tools in play mode allow you to edit the tempo and dynamics of your music graphically, applying default curves to provide more nuance to gradual tempo and dynamic changes. Add lanes for MIDI controllers and draw data to bring your music to life. With Dorico 2's new automation tools, you can add realism and nuance to the virtual performance of your music, taking it one step closer to the stage or concert hall without leaving your music notation software. And that's only the beginning. Check out the brand new Dorico website at dorico.com/TPC to find out more.